Well, I guess I'll go ahead and just start off with talking about my condition, what's happened with me. I'm a little bit nervous to go ahead and talk about this, but I've seen some other videos on YouTube, some other people talking about this stuff, and it's helped me a lot through my illness. And you know, there's been some really tough times where I've seen other people's stories, and it's really helped me a lot. Especially in those times where I was stuck laying in the bed and I just had no hope at all during those moments. So I guess I'll just start off with what happened to me originally. So I have been a drinker for a really long time. Um, I've been in the food industry my whole entire life. I was a manager in a bunch of restaurants, and just recently I was a chef for almost 10 years at a private dining establishment. That's a really stressful job. And in the food industry, there's a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs. Of course, I indulged in all of that, but my drug of choice was, of course, alcohol. Um, and I used a lot of it. Um, I started drinking at an early age. Not a lot, but people used to actually make fun of me when I was younger because one or two beers and I was drunk. But over the years, that all changed, and I transitioned from just drinking beer to drinking hard liquor. Uh, I'm 43 years old now. I'd say probably around the time I was about 30 is when I started really drinking really hardcore and started drinking vodka. That was my liquor of choice. um, so I guess the best thing to do is just go from here. So I got to the point where I would drink socially with my friends, and then it got to the point where I started drinking by myself. In the food industry, you get off late at night, and when I would get home, um, I would drink every night. I'd get back home at 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and by myself on my back porch, smoking cigarettes and drinking until I got wasted drunk and I would pass out. Like I said, in my 30s, it started getting really bad. I was drinking a lot of vodka. I'd say probably, I don't know, half a gallon every 2, 3 days. Of course, I was drinking beer and things like that on top of it as well. But, the vodka was my drink of choice. There were a lot of days, where, I was so hungover from getting so drunk the night before that I could hardly even function. But I still did. I went to work every single day. I never missed work. Um, and I knew I had a problem, but I continued to go to work every day, and I was very successful, and it didn't really hinder me as far as getting work done. Now, from the time I woke up in the morning, that's the first thing I started thinking about was where am I going to get my next bottle from. My wife didn't like the fact that I drank. She was always fussing at me about it. We always fought and argued because I drank so much. Um, and so there were a lot of times, we had a joint checking account and things like that. So I would try to find ways to hide it from her that I was buying alcohol, and it was always some kind of scheme or a plan for me to buy it so that she wouldn't know, even though she did know what I was doing. But in my mind, I thought I was hiding it from her. I had liquor bottles stashed in every single place that you could imagine, in my car and closets and underneath the bed, wherever you could think of. Um, and those didn't last very long, but I always tried to hide it from my wife so she wouldn't find it, especially take it and throw it out, which she did very often. So went on drinking like that for years. Um, you know, up until about a year ago. And I'll go more into, my alcoholism in some other videos, but I figure I'd just kind of start off with, a little bit of what led to this, and, why I'm making this video now, trying to help some people, give some hope. Um, so about a year ago, my drinking had gotten really bad. I'd quit my job as a chef and started my own business, which was a great idea and a bad idea at the same time, because my drinking had just gotten completely out of control at this point. I was, making my own hours, and I was successful in what I was doing. But, I would get off work. I was used to getting off work late at night. I started getting off work at, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then, I would be completely drunk by the time that my wife would get home. She would get home, 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, and I'd be passed out drunk. Um, well, last spring, I got, my drinking had just gotten really bad, and one day I just started getting sick. Throwing up was something that was pretty normal for me because I was always so hungover, and I'd gotten so used to throwing up that it really wasn't an issue at all. If I felt nauseous at all, I would just stick my finger down my throat and puke. For those of you out there that were in the same boat as me, I know that you understand that. And you just feel that bad, you just go ahead and vomit and just get over and done with it, just so it's over. And my drinking started first thing in the morning. I don't care if I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. The first thing I would do is get my bottle and make a drink. And this is one of the times, I'd had a, really bad binger of a week, and I started to vomit, and, I thought it was just normal. Well, that went from, me getting sick one day to I was vomiting for multiple days in a row. I had really, really bad back pain, and I thought maybe I just hurt my back, and I was just really hungover, and this went on for days and days, and then I started to throw up black stuff like coffee grinds, and I'm not the type of guy who ever really went to the doctor. I was always afraid what they would find out. Was there something wrong with me? Well, of course there was. And after the fact of me throwing up the black stuff for about 3 or 4 days, it got to the point where I was in the bed one day and my wife came home from work, and I was so ill that I couldn't even get up to throw up anymore in the toilet, and I had puked all over myself, all over the bed. It was all over the floor. I had a trash can beside the bed, and I'd thrown up everywhere. I couldn't even lean over enough to puke into the trash can anymore. I had thrown up all over myself. It was all over the sheets. And my wife said, "You have to go to the hospital." And I was afraid to do it, but I went. Ended up in the emergency room. And when I got there, I got one of those vomit bags, kept throwing up in it. It was just black stuff. They took me to the back, and then come to find out I had the first thing they told me was my blood sugar was like 1100, and they were surprised I was even conscious because of that. Which is surprising to me because I hadn't eaten anything in days. I didn't know how my blood sugar could be high. But anyway, then they came back, and they did a bunch of scans and everything. They told me I had pancreatitis and a bunch of other issues going on, and the doctor said we're gonna do our best. We don't know if you're gonna make it. And at that point I was just so sick I didn't really even care. They took me to the back, started doing work on me and everything. I ended up in a room. In the first few days of me being in the hospital, I really don't remember anything. They had me on a whole lot of different drugs. I don't even know what they were. But they were trying to keep me from going into detox. I hadn't drinking in a couple days before that, but I guess the hospital was worried that I was going to detox. So they had me on I guess some benzodiazepines or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. It was all IV drugs, I think, and I was completely out of it for the first few days. And when I finally got, conscious enough to know what was going on, I was in so much pain. My stomach was killing me, my back was killing me, and I was on morphine. I ended up staying in the hospital for 2 weeks. Was very, very sick. And, they told me that I had pancreatitis and I was diabetic. And they didn't really, my liver, they didn't really speak much on that at that time. It's more or less the pancreatitis, and they had told me I couldn't eat anything for a while, um, and I was on like a clear liquid diet for like 2 weeks or something like that. They didn't allow me to eat for like a week when I first got in the hospital, and then after that, I was allowed to like Jello and things like that, and they sent me home and sent me to an endocrinologist, to talk about my diabetes and everything, and that was that. So I thought everything was gonna be fine. Uh, so I came home, went to endocrinologist, found, talked about my diabetes, got all that stuff in order, and they told me it was gonna take a while. It was gonna be, I wasn't gonna have a lot of strength and things, and I was very weak when I came home from the hospital, but I was very adamant on going back to work. 'Cause like I said, I have my own business. So I think I didn't work for like a week when I came home, and and then I started going back to work. I was very, very tired, but I pushed myself very hard, and I wanted to keep my blood sugar under control. I was trying very hard. I made up my mind I wasn't ever going to drink again. Those days were over. I was done. Um, so that was, I think, beginning of June. I started back working again. My business was doing very well. I was extremely busy, working all the time, just constant working. I wouldn't tell anybody no. My wife's like, you need to slow down. I'm like, no, no, I'm out of the hospital now. I'm not gonna drink anymore. I'm gonna be successful. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make something out of myself and change my life. And I did, and I was very happy. I could see the change. My children, the way they approached me was completely different. I was living a different life. I've been drinking for years, and now here I am. I don't drink anymore. It's just a different way of life for me, and I was excited, and went you know from June until September. Um, Once again, extremely busy. My phone was constantly ringing. I'm not gonna talk about what I did for my business, but um, just constantly busy. I was working 7 days a week, and then coming home and staying busy and working around. We have a small farm, and I was continually working around the farm and just trying everything I could do to make my wife happy. I wasn't drinking any longer, so I just stayed busy so that I wouldn't think about alcohol, which I did from here to there, but not so much. I didn't want to end up. The pancreatitis was so bad, I never wanted to have that again. I just didn't want to experience that pain and the illness ever again. I was done with it. Um, well, at the end of September, I started getting sick again, and I started throwing up. And I thought I must have a stomach virus or I ate something bad, and that went on for, I was actually in the middle of a job when I got sick, and my daughter was helping me, and I had to tell her, I was like, I gotta go home, I can't continue. And I came home that day, super sick, running a fever. uh, I couldn't keep anything down. I kept vomiting. I didn't think anything like pancreatitis because I hadn't drank in like 4 months. At this point, was it May, June, July, August? Yeah, so it had been like 4 months since the last time I drank, so pancreatitis wasn't even a thought in my mind. Went to the doctor after a few days because I couldn't stop throwing up, and the doctor checked my blood sugar, and he's like, "You need to go to the emergency room." So of course I start crying immediately. My wife took me to the emergency room, and on the way, I told my wife to pull over, and I started throwing up blood. And this time it wasn't black; it was red. I knew that I had varices from being in the hospital the first time because they had done an endoscope, and they told me that my stomach looked like hamburger meat. But I didn't really ever think about that, it just didn't really cross my mind. Nobody had really talked about anything. I'd gone to a GI and they told me I was getting better, so I didn't really think of that. When I saw the red blood, I knew I was in trouble. So I went to the emergency room, ended up, they admitted me that night. They told me they did a CAT scan, told me I had pancreatitis again, which I was completely surprised. I had no idea. And sent me to ICU. Well, first I ended up on a regular floor, and as soon as they put me in that room, I threw up 500 cc's of straight red blood, and my heart rate went through the roof. It was like 166. I felt like I was having a heart attack. Um, and I can't remember if they gave me an IV and they started putting a bunch of fluid in me. Something triggered my heart rate to go up really high. Well, they moved me from the regular room to ICU immediately. Went to ICU. I was there for like a day, and they ended up putting a thing in my chest for them to, because my blood pressure had shot way down. I mean, way, way down. It was like 60/30 at one point, and they put this thing right here in my chest for them to put the medicine in. I can't remember what it was called, but in order for them to do that medicine for my blood pressure, for them to actually raise my blood pressure, they had to put that in my chest. And then that night they came to me and they said, look, you can't, we're going to have to move you to another hospital because we can't treat you here. We don't have a doctor that can treat you. So I ended up leaving my local hospital and going to a hospital. I live in South Carolina, and they took me. This was right during the hurricane that we just had this last September. They wanted me to go to MUSC in Charleston, and I said I'm not going there. There's a hurricane. I was worried if they were going to be short-staffed. So they ended up taking me to Prisma in Columbia, and so I got an ambulance. They took me up there. I went to the hospital. I was extremely sick. I was in ICU for I think like a week. And then they transferred me to a regular room. They were doing all kinds of tests on me, and this is when they found out. And well, they told me I'd been in the hospital I think for about a week and a half, and I was on Dilaudid, um, all kinds of painkillers. I was in so much pain, and I started hallucinating from the Dilaudid they were giving me, and I asked them to take me off of it. I didn't want it anymore. And that same day, when I asked them to take me off the Dilaudid, the hospitalist came in the room and said, my wife was there that day, and they came in and they said, we're gonna have to go ahead and let you go home. And I was confused. I was like, why? And they said, and with my wife right beside me, they said, you're about to die, and you need to go ahead and go home, get your stuff in order. And I have children. I have 3 children, and they said, you need to go home, spend time with your kids. And I was completely blown away. And I'm like, what's going on? They're like, you have cirrhosis, you have liver failure, you're gonna die, and you probably have a few months to live. So you need to go ahead and go home, spend time with your family, and you're not on the Dilaudid anymore. We wanted to go ahead and wean you off of it, but since you decided to stop taking it, we're gonna go ahead and send you home. So I went home and was completely blown away. I had no idea I had any kind of liver issues or anything. When I was in the hospital, they just pumped me full of fluids. So when I got home, my legs were completely swollen. My thighs were swollen. My abdomen was swollen. My face was swollen. Um, so I was so weak, so sick. They didn't give me hardly any painkiller. I think like 3 days with the painkillers, and I mean I was in a lot of pain. My back hurt so bad, but they refused to give me any more. Um, so I came home, and that's the start of the journey for me when I started to find out all the issues I really did have going on. Um, so anyway, this is where I'm gonna stop, and I will move forward later on and tell you the rest of the story. Thank you.